welcome to the Unveiled Epicheco's channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery, one that whispers through the shadows of time, linking the relentless ambition of a 19th-century titan to forgotten truths buried in the sands of ancient civilizations, where oil wasn't just a commodity but a sacred elixir guarded by enigmatic priests and lost empires, a secret that John D. in his quiet, obsessive pursuit of power, may have unwittingly rediscovered, weaving his life into a tapestry of mystery that stretches back to the dawn of human ingenuity, inviting you to relax, let your eyelids grow heavy, and drift along this soothing river of discovery as the gentle currents of history carry you toward peaceful slumber. In the hazy dawn of 1839, amid the rolling hills of upstate New York, a boy named John entered a world of stark contrasts, born into poverty yet destined to redefine wealth itself, his early years shrouded in the quiet discipline of a devout Baptist mother, whose stern faith instilled in him the unyielding virtues of thrift and moral rigor, while his father, William, a wandering salesman of dubious cures and elusive presence, taught him the harsh lessons of unreliability and self-reliance, lessons that echoed ancient parables from Mesopotamian tablets where cunning merchants navigated treacherous trades under the watchful eyes of gods like the keeper of hidden waters and subterranean treasures, perhaps foreshadowing John's own journey into the earth's dark bounty. As the young boy grew, saving every penny from odd jobs like raising turkeys or digging potatoes, his mind became a ledger of possibilities, a calm sanctuary where numbers danced like fireflies in the twilight, guiding him through the chaos of a rapidly industrializing America, where the echoes of ancient alchemists, who distilled mysterious substances from the ground in forgotten Babylonian rituals, seemed to murmur in the wind, hinting at untapped powers beneath the soil. By his teenage years, John had transformed into a meticulous clerk in Cleveland, Ohio, his days filled with the rhythmic scratch of quill on paper, balancing books with an almost mystical precision, obsessing over efficiency as if decoding an ancient cipher, much like the Egyptian scribes who guarded the secrets of the Nile's floods, their papyrus scrolls hiding formulas for prosperity that mirrored John's innate grasp of compounding interest and frugal living. A hidden thread connecting his modest desk to the grandeur of Pharaoh's treasuries, where gold and oils flowed in eternal cycles of accumulation. Then came the 1860s, a decade of thunderous change as the Civil War raged, and the oil boom erupted in Pennsylvania's wild drills. But John, with his serene, calculating gaze, saw beyond the chaotic gushers to the refined essence of power, realizing that controlling the process of purification, turning crude black gold into usable kerosene, was the true path to dominion, a revelation that resonated with ancient Persian fire who revered naphtha as a divine flame. Their Zoroastrian temples lit by eternal fires fed from seeps in the earth, a forgotten truth that perhaps surfaced in whispers through old texts John encountered in dusty libraries, igniting a spark of mystery in his otherwise pragmatic soul. In 1870, with partners, he founded Standard Oil, a venture that ballooned through ruthless yet methodical strategies, integrating vertically from barrels to pipelines, forging alliances with railroads for secret rebates, and consolidating rivals with an inexorable calm, much like how ancient Roman emperors absorbed provinces into their empire, their aqueducts and roads mirroring John's network of refineries that soon commanded nearly 90% of America's oil. A monopoly built on efficiency rather than brute force, yet veiled in the intrigue of deals that evoked the shadowy cabals of medieval alchemists seeking the philosopher's stone, turning base matter into gold, a parallel that added layers of enigma to John's ascent, as if he were channeling arcane knowledge from lost grimoires hidden in European vaults, knowledge that fueled his empire's explosive growth amid the flickering gaslights of Gilded Age cities. But as his wealth swelled to unimaginable heights, public fury mounted like a gathering storm, whispers of corruption and unfair practices swelling into roars, leading to antitrust crusades spearheaded by figures like Ida, who's peeled back the layers of Standard Oil's operations, revealing a web of influence that stretched like the tentacles of an ancient leviathan from biblical depths, until the Supreme Court's 1911 decree shattered the behemoth into 34 pieces. A breakup intended to curb his power, yet ironically multiplying his fortune as the fragments flourished independently. A twist of fate that echoed the myths of Hydra, where severing heads only birthed more, infusing John's story with an air of predestined mystery, as if the ancient gods of commerce had ordained his resilience from the cradle of civilization itself. Amid this tumult, John's private world remained an oasis of simplicity and devotion, a deeply religious family man who rose at dawn for Bible study, dined modestly on bread and milk, and instilled in his children the same unpretentious values, his marriage to Laura a partnership of quiet strength, their home a haven untouched by opulence despite billions at his command, a life that concealed deeper enigmas. Like rumored encounters with esoteric scholars who spoke of Atlantean legends, where advanced societies harnessed viscous earth blood for energy, secrets that perhaps influenced his later philanthropic visions, blending his Baptist faith with these veiled discoveries in a personal quest for redemption and legacy. As the years unfolded, the Titan turned his gaze outward, becoming history's paramount philanthropist, channeling rivers of wealth into founding the University of Chicago, the Institute for Medical Research, pioneering breakthroughs in vaccines and disease control, and global initiatives to eradicate hookworm and malaria, efforts that saved countless lives across continents, yet woven with hidden stories of ancient healers from Greek who used earth-derived potions in their temples. Forgotten remedies that modern science, funded by John, unwittingly revived, adding a layer of profound discovery to his benevolence, as if he were closing a cosmic loop from antiquity's plagues to 20th century cures, his actions a soothing balm on the wounds of industrial excess. Tension built in his later decades as health waned, yet his spirit endured, navigating scandals and serenely reflecting on a life that had reshaped capitalism's very bones, until on May 23, 1937, at the venerable age of 97, John D. slipped into eternal rest in Beach, Florida, his passing a quiet culmination of a saga that left behind not just fortunes but institutions enduring to this day, a legacy etched in the annals of progress, philanthropy, and the subtle mysteries of human ambition, where the black gold he mastered echoed the primordial ooze from which life itself emerged, a forgotten truth from eons past that bound his story to the universe's deepest rhythms, inviting contemplation as the narrative fades into the gentle embrace of night. But wait, as we peel back one more layer, imagine the clandestine journals discovered in a sealed vault years after his death, hinting at expeditions funded in secret to Mesopotamian ruins, where archaeologists unearthed cuneiform tablets describing oil as the blood of Tiamat, the chaos dragon, a mythical source of infinite power that John, in his obsessive ledgers, may have symbolically tamed. A plot twist revealing his empire not as mere business but a modern reenactment of ancient rites. Building to a climax where, in his final years, he confronted the moral shadows of his methods, finding solace in giving back what the earth had yielded, resolving the tension between ruthless ascent and redemptive grace in a satisfying arc that affirms the enduring human spirit. As the gentle veil of twilight settles over the sprawling estates of hills, where John D. retreated in his twilight years, we delve deeper into the enigmatic threads of his life, unraveling lesser-known tapestries that bind his American Odyssey to the ancient whispers of oil's primordial power, a substance revered not just as fuel, but as the lifeblood of forgotten gods and empires, inviting you to sink into the soft embrace of history's currents, your breath slowing, your mind wandering through the mists of time as sleep beckons like a distant horizon. In the shadowed corners of youth, beyond the ledger books and Sunday sermons, lay the scandalous secrets of his father, William, known as Devil Bill, in hushed tones across the rural hamlets of upstate New York, a man who masqueraded as a deaf-mute peddler of elixirs, brewing potions from snake oil and herbs while maintaining a double life, bigamous to a second family under the alias Doctor. William, a deception that echoed the ancient tricksters of Greek mythology, like Hermes the god of commerce and cunning, who wove illusions to amass hidden treasures, much as Bill's wanderings left and young John in precarious poverty, forging in the boy a steel resolve to control his fate, a resolve that would propel him from clerk to colossus amid America's Gilded Age frenzy. By 1853, as the family fled to Cleveland to escape Bill's mounting infamy, including whispers of a rape accusation against a household servant that mysteriously never reached trial, John, at 14, enrolled in a commercial college, mastering bookkeeping with a precision that mirrored the meticulous scribes of ancient, who tallied oil rations on clay tablets in Ur, where petroleum seeped from the earth like divine ichor, used to waterproof reed boats navigating the Euphrates. A forgotten parallel to John's emerging obsession with efficiency, as he landed his first job at, and earning 50 cents a day, yet tithing 10% to his Baptist church, a habit born from piety that would later channel billions into philanthropy, blending Christian duty with the arcane allure of accumulation. In Cleveland's bustling docks, where the river met the iron pulse of industry, John partnered with B. Clark in 1859, trading produce amid the Civil War's chaos, amassing $4,000 by age 24, enough to marry Laura, a schoolteacher whose abolitionist zeal complemented his quiet ambition, their union producing 5 children, including the dutiful John, who would inherit the mantle of stewardship, yet hidden in their domestic bliss were the strains of John's relentless drive, as he confided in letters the burdens of a nervous collapse at 13, a harbinger of the alopecia that would strip him of all hair by 50, turning his public image into a spectral figure, wigged and enigmatic, much like the bald priests of ancient Egypt who anointed pharaohs with sacred oils from the Sinai seeps. Rituals of power that seemed to foreshadow his anointment as oil's modern sovereign. The oil rush of 1860s Pennsylvania, with its wildcat drills spewing black gold like the fiery vents of Baku in ancient Persia, where Zoroastrian fire temples burned eternal flames from natural gas leaks, revered as manifestations of light, drew John not to the risky rigs, but to the alchemical art of refining, founding, and in 1865 to distill kerosene, a cleaner illuminant than whale oil, illuminating American homes as the nation healed from war. Yet lesser known were his early experiments with byproducts, turning waste into lubricants and paraffin, innovations that echoed the medieval Arab alchemists like Al, who distilled petroleum into naphtha for lamps and warfare, secrets preserved in manuscripts that perhaps influenced European traders whose tales reached Cleveland's libraries, fueling John's vision of vertical integration. By 1870, Standard Oil's incorporation marked the ascent, but behind the boardroom doors lurked ruthless tactics, secret railroad rebates from magnates like undercutting rivals until they sold out or collapsed, a consolidation that controlled 90% of U.S. refining by 1880, yet unexplored scandals simmered, like the 1872 South Improvement Company scheme, a cartel exposed as a conspiracy by independents, igniting public fury and foreshadowing antitrust battles, much as ancient Roman emperors monopolized olive oil presses, crushing small farmers in the name of empire, a historical echo that added mystery to his empire building, as if he channeled the ghosts of Caesars through his ledgers. Amid opulence he shunned, living frugally in a modest Cleveland home, John's private world concealed deeper enigmas. His father's reappearances, laden with cash from dubious schemes, including horse thievery rings in Moravia, forcing family relocations under cover of night, scars that perhaps drove John's obsessive control, while Laura's influence tempered him, founding college in 1881 for black women, a lesser-known act of quiet radicalism in post-Reconstruction America, linking his philanthropy to ancient Ethiopian queens who traded asphalt for temple seals. Hidden truths of equity buried in time's sands. As the 1890s dawned, with Standard Oil's trust structure, a legal labyrinth of interlocking companies, drawing Ida's investigative gaze, whose 1904 Inc. magazine painted him as a monopolistic villain, retreated to golf courses, playing daily at Forest Hill, his swings a metaphor for calculated strikes. Yet unknown to many was his 1891 health crisis, a mysterious illness of exhaustion that led to his alopecia, prompting a semi-retirement at 52. Delegating to lieutenants like John D. While he pondered mortality, much like the Babylonian kings who consulted oil omens, divining futures from swirling patterns in sacred vessels, a mystical practice that seemed to resonate in his later reflections on divine providence. The 1911 Supreme Court dissolution, fracturing Standard into 34 entities like in Chevron, ironically ballooned his wealth to $900 million, as shares soared, a twist evoking the Hydra of Greek lore, regenerating stronger, while public outrage peaked with the 1914 massacre, where backed guards killed striking miners, a bloodstain he sought to cleanse through labor reforms, yet hidden were his anonymous donations during the event. Funneling aid to families via intermediaries, a duality of ruthlessness and remorse that mirrored ancient Assyrian warlords who extracted oil tributes, yet funded ziggurats for atonement. Turning fully to giving, his foundation, established in 1913, eradicated hookworm in the South, a lazy man's disease, afflicting millions, echoing ancient Chinese healers who boiled seep oils for brews, while funding the University of Chicago in 1890 transformed education, and his 1901 Medical Institute pioneered vaccines, battling yellow fever, as if reclaiming the elixir from Aztec shamans who smeared petroleum on wounds. In his 90s, at the casements in Florida, distributed dimes to children, a quirky ritual born from childhood thrift, while secretly funding archaeological digs in Mesopotamia, unearthing tablets detailing oil as the blood of Tiamat, chaos goddess, a discovery that perhaps affirmed his belief in oil's providential role, culminating in a life of 97 years, passing peacefully on May 23, 1937, his legacy a mosaic of innovation and intrigue. Shaping America's capitalist soul with threads from antiquity's veiled depths, lulling you into dreams where empires rise and fall on rivers of black gold. As the soft glow of a Florida sunset bathes the verandas of the casements, where John D. spent his final decades in contemplative repose, we venture further into the labyrinthine corridors of his extraordinary existence, unearthing lesser-trodden paths of history that tie his American saga to the primordial secrets of petroleum, a substance that ancient Mesopotamians revered as the black blood of the earth, harvesting it from natural seeps to craft adhesives for their ziggurats and caulks for reed boats gliding along the Tigris. Much like the unyielding mortar of ambition that bounds empire, inviting you to recline into this tranquil voyage through time, your thoughts softening like waves lapping at forgotten shores as the narrative lulls you toward serene dreams. Delving into the shadowed recesses of his lineage, we find that's father, William, infamously dubbed Devil Bill by neighbors in New York, not only peddled spurious elixirs as a traveling salesman, but lived a double life as a bigamist, marrying a second wife under the alias Doctor William in 1855 while maintaining his family with a deception that mirrored the cunning duplicities of ancient Persian merchants who traded in naphtha under veiled identities to evade royal taxes, their oil lamps flickering secrets in the night markets of Persepolis, a parallel that perhaps instilled in young John a profound distrust of instability, driving him to construct a fortress of financial order from the chaos of his upbringing. Amid the rural hardships of county, where John's grandfather was remembered as a diminutive tippler of mean spirit, restrained only by his wife's iron will, the family endured whispers of scandal, including William's 1849 arrest for rape, a charge mysteriously dropped without trial, leaving echoes of unresolved darkness that haunted the name, much as the ancient Egyptians shrouded their pharaohs in petroleum-derived bitumen for embalming, preserving bodies while concealing the mysteries of the afterlife in the pyramid's silent chambers, a hidden truth that resonated in John's own battles with public perception. By 1855, as the family relocated to Cleveland to escape mounting notoriety, 16-year-old John secured his first position as an assistant bookkeeper at and earning a modest 50 cents a day, yet meticulously recording every expenditure in his famed Ledger a habit of thrift born from his mother's Baptist fervor, who enforced tithing even in poverty, a discipline that echoed the scrupulous tallies of Sumerian scribes on clay tablets, documenting oil rations for temple rituals, where petroleum was burned as incense to appease gods like the Storm Bringer, foreshadowing John's transformation of crude oil into a divine instrument of illumination and wealth. In these formative years, his introverted nature revealed itself profoundly. He harbored a deep fear of public speaking, preferring the solitude of numbers and ledgers over oratory, a trait that contrasted sharply with his father's bombastic cons, yet aligned with the quiet alchemists of medieval Arabia, who distilled petroleum into naphtha in secluded laboratories, their silent experiments yielding flammable wonders akin to the kerosene that would light America's homes through Standard Oil's refineries. As the Civil War's shadows lengthened, John's produce partnership with B. Clark flourished, amassing a nest egg that allowed his 1864 marriage to Laura, a union steeped in shared abolitionist ideals and mutual restraint, producing children who would carry forward his legacy, including the dutiful John, who later channeled millions into national parks like Acadia and Great Smoky Mountains, preserving vast acreages, as if reclaiming the untamed wilderness where Native Americans once gathered seep oil for medicinal salves and adhesives, binding arrowheads to shafts in rituals lost to time. Yet beneath this veneer of domestic harmony lurked personal afflictions. In his 40s, began losing all body hair due to alopecia, a condition that rendered him bald and eyebrowless, prompting him to don rotating toupees of varying lengths to simulate natural growth, a weekly ritual of illusion that evoked the ancient Greeks' use of tar and pitch in remedies for skin ailments, blending olive oil with sulfur to treat psoriasis, a forgotten elixir that perhaps whispered through medical texts influencing his later funding of research into such maladies. By the 1890s, bouts of depression and digestive woes plagued him, culminating in a mysterious 1891 illness that forced semi-retirement at 52, attributing his ailments to overwork amid the relentless antitrust scrutiny, much like the exhaustive labors of Byzantine engineers who weaponized Greek fire, a petroleum-based incendiary hurled from siphons during sieges, its formula a guarded secret that mirrored the veiled rebates and trusts of Standard Oil. In retirement, discovered golf at 62, becoming a skilled player who navigated courses with the same precision as his business dealings, swinging clubs until his 90s despite frailty, a pastime that offered respite akin to the leisurely pursuits of ancient Chinese scholars, who refined crude oil for serene lantern light during contemplative evenings, their bamboo pipelines drawing gas from wells drilled as early as 347 CE. An engineering marvel that prefigured the pipelines snaking across domain. His quirky habit of distributing shiny dimes to children and adults alike, begun in the 1910s, became legendary, a gesture of benevolence dispensing over 30,000 coins annually, symbolizing the trickle-down of his vast fortune, much as Persian healers applied oil topically for joint pain, a soothing balm from antiquity that paralleled his own quest for physical relief through orange juice cures and moderate living. As philanthropy consumed his later years, lesser-known acts emerged, such as his anonymous aid during the 1914 massacre aftermath, funneling relief to miners' families while publicly defending his company's actions, a duality that tensioned his soul, building to a climax in the 1920s when he grappled with the moral weight of his monopoly, finding resolution in endowments like the Laura Memorial, which poured $5 million into Great Smoky Mountains land acquisitions, echoing the ancient Assyrians' extraction of oil tributes to fund atonement temples. Through the foundation, he battled global scourges, eradicating hookworm in the American South, a parasite afflicting millions with lethargy, using methods that revived age-old Chinese brews from boiled seep oils, while his institute's yellow fever vaccine breakthroughs saved continents, as if unlocking the curative powers once attributed to Babylonian oil omens, divining health from swirling patterns in sacred vessels. In his 90s, surrounded by hills, reflected on a life that had amassed a fortune equivalent to over $400 billion in today's dollars, yet lived simply, shunning extravagance for bread, milk, and Bible study. His passing on that tranquil May morning in 1937, a gentle, leaving a legacy that intertwined ruthless innovation with redemptive giving, forever etched in America's fabric, with hidden threads to antiquity's oil mystics, where the earth's dark gift fueled both destruction and healing, inviting eternal contemplation as the stars wheel overhead in silent vigil. As the whispering palms of beach sway under a canopy of stars, cradling the memory of John D.'s final earthly abode, we plunge even deeper into the veiled chronicles of his unparalleled journey, tracing the subtle veins of influence that connected his Gilded Age triumphs to the arcane lore of oil in ancient civilizations, where Sumerian priests divined omens from the swirling patterns of bitumen in ritual bowls, foretelling fortunes much as ledgers his empire's inexorable rise, allowing the soothing cadence of this tale to envelop you like a warm blanket, easing your mind into the tranquil depths of restful reverie. Beyond the public facade of the oil baron lay the intricate web of his family dynamics, where his mother's unyielding Baptist discipline forged not just his character, but a generational ethos of restraint. She, a descendant of hardy Scottish immigrants who settled in colonial Massachusetts, instilled in John a fear of idleness that mirrored the ancient Hebrews' proverbs on diligence, their scrolls extolling the virtues of the ant's labor while warning against sloth, a moral compass that guided him through the temptations of wealth, even as his father's erratic absences, punctuated by sporadic returns bearing ill-gotten gains from lumber scams in Michigan's forests, left emotional voids filled only by prayers and hymns sung around the flickering kerosene lamps that would one day bear his stamp. In Cleveland's emerging industrial heart, where the family's modest frame house on Cheshire Street stood as a bulwark against extravagance, young John's first entrepreneurial spark ignited at age 7, selling polished stones to neighbors, a humble trade echoing the bead merchants of ancient Indus Valley civilizations, who bartered lapis lazuli infused with petroleum resins for luster, hidden crafts that perhaps surfaced in tailies carried by immigrant workers flocking to Ohio's shores. His education at Cleveland Central High School, though brief, honed a mathematical acuity that propelled him into the world of commerce. Yet lesser known was his dropout at 16 to attend Folsom's Commercial College, where he mastered debentry bookkeeping in mere weeks, a system invented by Venetian friar in 1494, blending algebra with mercantile precision in ways that paralleled the abacus calculations of Babylonian oil traders tallying barrels for temple tithes. As the 1857 financial panic gripped the nation, his unflappable calm allowed him to thrive, loaning money at 12% interest while others faltered, a shrewdness akin to the Phoenician ship captains who navigated Mediterranean storms, their hulls sealed with pitch from Dead Sea seeps to transport olive oil amphorae, ensuring profits amid peril. The wedding to Laura in 1864, held in her parents' parlor amid abolitionist fervor, her father, an Underground Railroad conductor, wove social justice into their bond, with Laura's diary entries revealing quiet debates on slavery's end, influencing John's later support for black education, such as the 1884 funding of seminary in Atlanta, named for her family, an institution that empowered generations of African-American women scholars. Much as ancient Ethiopian queens like Sheba traded asphalt-laced incense for knowledge in Solomon's court, forgotten exchanges of wisdom and wealth. Their children, Bessie Alice and John, grew under a regime of simplicity, no toys on Sundays, allowances earned through chores, a upbringing that concealed deeper tensions like mental health struggles leading to her 1910 institutionalization. A private sorrow bore with stoic faith, seeking cures through his medical institute's nascent psychiatry research, echoing the humoral therapies of ancient Greek physicians like Galen, who prescribed petroleum vapors for melancholia in steamy baths. In the boardrooms of Standard Oil, the 1870s saw innovations like the process for sulfur removal, adopted in 1887 to purify Lima crude, a chemical breakthrough that expanded his reach. Yet hidden scandals brewed, such as the 1879 indictment for conspiracy in Pennsylvania, dismissed on technicalities but fueling muckraker ire, much as Roman emperors faced Senate probes over monopolized Egyptian asphalt mines used for mummification and road paving. 1882 trust formation, a legal novelty consolidating control without direct ownership, drew from Scottish clan structures, but evoked the secretive guilds of medieval Venice, guarding glass-blowing recipes infused with oil derivatives. As antitrust pressures mounted, his 1892 testimony before Congress revealed a composed demeanor, deflecting questions with biblical parables, a tactic that masked the stress culminating in his 1891 breakdown, diagnosed as nervous prostration, prompting a retreat to the Hudson Valley estate where landscaped gardens offered solace akin to the hanging gardens of Babylon, irrigated with channels lined in bitumen to prevent leaks. An ancient engineering feat that whispered through his contemplative walks. Philanthropy's crescendo began earnestly in the 1890s, with anonymous gifts to churches and missions, but escalated post-1900 through advisor Frederick T. Gates, who structured his giving like a business, founding the General Education Board in 1902 to uplift Southern schools, disbursing over $129 million and transforming rural education, efforts that revived the communal learning of ancient Athenian academies, where olive oil lamps illuminated Socratic dialogues. Lesser explored was his 1910 conditional grant to the YMCA for international work, tying funds to moral reforms, or the 1927 donation to restore Versailles Gardens, a transatlantic gesture blending American largesse with European heritage, much as Persian kings gifted naphtha to Greek allies for siege engines. In health's decline, consulted osteopaths and sipped fresh-squeezed juices, attributing longevity to moderation, while secretly funding expeditions to the Middle East, where 1920s digs at Ur uncovered oil-sealed urns inscribed with curses against thieves, artifacts that perhaps affirmed his view of oil as a providential trust. Family legacies intertwined with national history. John's 1915 creation of Center in New York, a Art Deco marvel rising from Depression-era resolve, housed murals by controversially removed for communist themes, a clash of ideology echoing the iconoclasms of ancient Byzantine emperors destroying oil-painted idols. As the 1930s waned, dimes became talismans of hope during the Great Depression, distributed with grandfatherly wisdom, while his foundation's malaria campaigns in Italy and Brazil eradicated vectors using oil-based larvicides, closing a circle to ancient Roman marsh drainers who applied pitch to stagnant waters. On that fateful May dawn in 1937, surrounded by kin, he whispered final words of faith, his heart ceasing as gently as a flame extinguished, leaving a fortune dispersed yet an imprint eternal, from capitalism's blueprints to philanthropy's benchmarks, threaded with mysteries from oil's cradle in antiquity, where the earth's dark essence birthed both light and shadow, now fading into the peaceful hush of eternity's embrace. As the tranquil echoes of John D.'s legacy ripple through the corridors of time, from the opulent halls of to the humble seeps where ancient civilizations first harvested the earth's dark nectar, we explore the posthumous mysteries that continue to unfold, revealing how his philanthropic empire extended beyond his mortal coil, influencing global health and education in ways that mirrored the primordial applications of petroleum as a healing balm in forgotten Persian remedies. Where crude oil soothed aching joints and mended wounds under the gaze of Zoroastrian flames, inviting you to surrender to the gentle sway of this historical odyssey, your worries dissolving like mist in the morning sun as slumber's soft whisper draws near. In the wake of 1937 passing, his will dispersed a fortune meticulously structured through trusts established decades earlier, ensuring that his children inherited not just wealth but a mandate for stewardship, with John D. emerging as the primary executor, channeling millions into the restoration of colonial Williamsburg in Virginia during the 1920s and 1930s, a project that revived America's foundational architecture, much as ancient Mesopotamians used bitumen from Euphrates seeps to bind the bricks of their ziggurats around 3000 BC, waterproofing grand structures against the floods of the Tigris. A hidden parallel of preservation that seemed to echo through efforts to safeguard cultural heritage amid the tumult of the Great Depression. Lesser known among his bequests was the quiet funding of archaeological expeditions in the Middle East during the early 20th century, where teams uncovered Sumerian artifacts sealed with petroleum-derived pitch, vessels that once held oils for ritual lamps illuminating temple rites, discoveries that perhaps affirmed own view of oil as a divine endowment. Blending his Baptist convictions with the arcane knowledge of Babylonian priests, who divined futures from the swirling patterns of heated bitumen in sacred bowls, a mystical practice that added layers of intrigue to the family's ongoing patronage of historical research. John's own life wove further enigmas, including his commissioning of the iconic Prometheus statue at Center in 1934, symbolizing enlightenment through fire, a motif drawn from Greek mythology, yet resonant with the ancient Persian use of naphtha in eternal flames at Zoroastrian fire temples, where natural gas seeps fueled undying lights as early as 2000 BC, a forgotten truth that infused the Art Deco complex with subtle nods to oil's primordial power. Even as labor strikes and artistic controversies, like the removal of mural depicting Lenin, built tension in the project's climax, resolving in a landmark of New York resilience. Meanwhile, the foundation, seeded with over $250 million by 1937, expanded its war on disease, pioneering the development of the yellow fever vaccine in the 1930s through collaborations with scientists like Max, who earned a Nobel in 1951 for work funded by the Institute, efforts that echoed the medicinal applications of crude oil by ancient Egyptians, who mixed bitumen with herbs for embalming and treating skin ailments as described by Herodotus, preserving pharaohs in pyramids held together by petroleum mortars, a cycle of healing that bridged antiquity's plagues to modern eradications. Deeper still lay family secrets, such as the lesser-explored role of daughter, whose battles with mental health led to her founding of the Museum of Modern Art in 1929 alongside John's wife, a venture that housed masterpieces like Van's Starry Night, yet concealed the personal turmoil of institutionalization and her father's discreet consultations with early psychiatrists, drawing on emerging therapies that paralleled ancient Greek physician Hippocrates' prescriptions of tar and sulfur for psoriasis, blending olive oil with pitch from Ionian seeps to alleviate suffering, a soothing remedy that whispered through the corridors of the Medical Institute's research into neurology. As the 1940s dawned, Nelson, John's son, rose to political prominence as coordinator of Inter-American Affairs during World War II, fostering cultural exchanges that countered Axis propaganda, while secretly aiding in the development of Latin American oil fields to secure Allied supplies, a strategic move that evoked the Byzantine engineers of Greek fire, a petroleum-based incendiary flung from siphons in naval battles around 600 AD. Its formula, a guarded secret of naphtha and quicklime that turned tides of war, much as its descendants navigated the geopolitics of energy in a world forever altered by Standard Oil's fragments. In quieter realms, the family's Hills estate became a sanctuary for reflection, where John III pursued Asian art collections, donating thousands of pieces to museums, and establishing the Asia Society in 1956, linking American philanthropy to ancient Chinese innovations like the drilling of bamboo pipelines for natural gas as early as 347 AD, used to boil brine for salt and fuel lamps in Sichuan province. A technological marvel that prefigured the pipelines snaking across empire and hinted at a cosmic continuity in human ingenuity. Amid these legacies, plot twists emerged in the form of environmental reckonings, as the 1960s saw David, the banker grandson, grappling with the ecological impacts of oil spills like the 1969 Barbara disaster, prompting family foundations to fund conservation efforts, including the creation of national parks in the Virgin Islands, a redemptive arc that contrasted the ruthless consolidations of the past with forward-looking stewardship. Much as ancient Native Americans applied seep oil as salves for wounds and adhesives for tools, harmonizing with nature's bounty rather than dominating it. Through it all, the name endured scandals and triumphs, from Chase Manhattan Bank's global expansions to the Attica prison uprising in 1971, under Governor Nelson's tenure, building to climaxes of power and controversy, yet resolving in enduring institutions like the university, which advanced genetic research into the 21st century, unlocking secrets of life that tied back to the primordial ooze from which petroleum itself emerged. A profound discovery, affirming the interconnectedness of all things. As generations unfolded, the family's influence waned in visibility but deepened in impact, shaping policies on population control, agriculture through the Green Revolution, and global health initiatives that saved billions, weaving a tapestry rich with mystery where the black gold of antiquity, harvested by Assyrians for medicines and by Japanese for heating in ancient times, found modern echoes in the saga, lulling the soul with tales of ambition, redemption, and the eternal dance of shadow and light. As the enduring spirit of John D. lingers in the grand libraries and research halls he endowed, from the bustling campuses of the University of Chicago to the quiet labs where scientists unravel the mysteries of disease, we journey onward through the multifaceted legacy that his descendants wove into the fabric of the 20th and 21st centuries, uncovering hidden intersections where the ancient art of oil divination, practiced by Etruscan seers who poured bitumen into shallow pools to interpret omens from its viscous flows, mirrors the predictive analytics of modern energy markets shaped by Standard Oil's splintered airs, allowing the rhythmic flow of this narrative to cradle your thoughts, easing you into a state of profound relaxation, where the boundaries between past and present blur in dreamy harmony. In the shadow of World War II, as the globe convulsed in conflict, the Foundation quietly funded the development of penicillin mass production in 1941, collaborating with British scientists to scale up the antibiotic discovered by Alexander Fleming, a breakthrough that saved millions of Allied lives and echoed the antimicrobial properties of crude oil noted by ancient Mesopotamian healers, who applied asphalt poultices to infected wounds as recorded on cuneiform tablets from around 2000 BC, a forgotten remedy that seemed to resurface in the Foundation's push for global health, blending wartime urgency with timeless curative wisdom. Nelson, the charismatic grandson, ascended to New York's governorship in 1959, championing progressive policies like the expansion of the state university system and environmental protections. Yet his tenure was marred by the 1971 Attica prison uprising, where his decision to retake the facility by force resulted in tragic losses, a climactic moment of tension that resolved in reforms to prison conditions. Much as ancient Roman emperors quelled revolts in asphalt-rich provinces like Judea, using petroleum-derived pitch to fortify siege engines, while later funding aqueducts for public atonement. Meanwhile, David, the banking titan who led Chase Manhattan from 1969 to 1981, orchestrated mergers that globalized finance, including the 1955 union with the Bank of the Manhattan Company, creating a powerhouse that financed oil explorations in the Middle East, tying back to the family's roots in ways that evoked the caravan traders of ancient Arabia, who transported naphtha from Bahrain's seeps to light the lamps of distant empires. A trade route of mystery and wealth that paralleled the pipelines of influence David extended across continents. Lesser known was his role in founding the Trilateral Commission in 1973, a think tank fostering dialogue among North America, Europe, and Japan, amid whispers of conspiracy theories portraying it as a shadowy cabal, yet in truth a forum for economic stability, much like the secretive councils of Byzantine alchemists guarding the formula for Greek fire, a petroleum weapon that defended Constantinople for centuries. In the realm of art and culture, his vision birthed the Museum of Modern Art, acquiring works like Demoiselles in 1939, a collection that concealed personal stories, such as her battles with depression treated at the family's private sanitariums, drawing on therapies influenced by the Institute's psychiatric advancements, which in turn hearkened to ancient Egyptian use of bitumen in mood-altering incense burned in temples of Thoth, the god of knowledge, a soothing vapor that perhaps inspired modern explorations into aromatherapy. As the 1970s oil crises gripped the world, triggered by OPEC embargoes, the irony deepened. Descendants of the man who monopolized American oil now navigated a landscape where, and Standard's progeny, faced global shortages, prompting family foundations to invest in alternative energy research, a redemptive twist that built tension between fossil fuel legacies and sustainable futures, resolving in grants for solar and wind initiatives that echoed ancient Chinese harnessing of natural gas from bamboo wells for eco-friendly salt boiling. An innovation from the Han Dynasty that whispered of balanced harmony with the earth. John D. III, the eldest grandson, devoted his life to population control and Asian affairs, establishing the Population Council in 1952 to address global overpopulation through family planning, efforts that saved resources amid famines, much as ancient Indian texts from the Vedic era described herbal contraceptives mixed with petroleum resins harvested from Himalayan seeps, hidden botanical knowledge that paralleled the Council's promotion of birth control in developing nations. His tragic 1978 death in a car accident near Hills added a layer of enigma, with unsubstantiated rumors of foul play tied to his advocacy, yet officially a simple mishap, leaving his Japan society to flourish as a bridge between East and West. The conservationist brother preserved vast wildernesses, donating 5,000 acres for Virgin Islands National Park in 1956 and funding UFO research in the 1990s through discrete grants, blending environmentalism with esoteric inquiries into extraterrestrial phenomena, as if probing the stars for answers to earthly mysteries. Much like ancient Mayan astronomers, who oiled their obsidian mirrors with seep petroleum to enhance celestial visions in temple observatories. The maverick who served as Arkansas governor from 1967 to 1971 reformed the state's penal system and promoted racial integration, his cattle ranch a haven of progressive farming that echoed the agricultural revolutions backed by the Foundation's Green Revolution in the 1960s, introducing high-yield crops to avert starvation in Asia and Latin America. Innovations rooted in hybrid seeds that mirrored ancient Mesopotamian irrigation techniques, sealed with bitumen canals to nourish barley fields. As the millennium turned, Peggy, David's daughter, founded the Institute in 1986 to combat poverty through collaborative networks, while Greatlike pursued fashion and equestrian pursuits, yet all carried the mantle of philanthropy, dispersing billions through vehicles like the Brothers Fund, which in 2014 divested from fossil fuels in a poignant pivot, acknowledging climate change's shadows cast by the very industry that birthed their fortune. A climactic reckoning that resolved in commitments to renewable energy, tying back to ancient Persian windmills powered indirectly by oil-lubricated gears. Through it all, unexplored archives in the Archive Center reveal letters hinting at John's late-life fascination with spiritualism, consulting mediums about ancient oil lore from Chaldean oracles, blending his devout Christianity with veiled curiosities, a personal mystery that infused the family's ongoing quest for meaning amid wealth's burdens. Today, in 2026, as energy transitions accelerate, the imprint endures in vaccines combating pandemics, universities fostering innovation, and parks offering solace, a legacy woven with threads from antiquity's oil guardians, where Hittite warriors smeared petroleum on chariots for fireproofing in battles lost to time, inviting eternal reflection on ambition's double edge, now settling like a soft fog over the landscape of history as dreams take flight. As the whispers of innovation echo through the corridors of university, where groundbreaking research into genomics and immunotherapy continues to push the boundaries of human potential, we delve further into the intricate web of the family's influence on the modern world, uncovering veiled connections to ancient alchemists who distilled petroleum into elixirs of longevity in hidden Arabian laboratories, their flasks bubbling with naphtha under starlit skies as early as the 8th century. A quest for eternal life that parallels the Foundation's ongoing battle against aging and disease, lulling your senses with the gentle rhythm of history's unfolding tapestry, where each thread invites deeper repose and tranquil dreams. In the digital age's dawn, as the internet revolutionized communication, descendants like David embraced technology's promise, with his 1995 memoir, Memoirs, revealing intimate glimpses into Cold War diplomacy, including discreet meetings with world leaders that shaped U.S. foreign policy, much as ancient Persian couriers carried sealed messages on horseback, their saddlebags waterproofed with bitumen to protect royal decrees across vast empires, a tradition of secure exchange that foreshadowed the encrypted networks funded by grants for cybersecurity research in the 2000s. Peggy, carrying the torch of social innovation, expanded to bridge divides between philanthropists and grassroots leaders in Africa and Latin America, fostering sustainable development projects that echoed the communal irrigation systems of ancient Indus Valley cities like Mohenjo-Daro, where petroleum resins sealed clay pipes to distribute water equitably, hidden engineering feats that inspired modern water conservation efforts backed by the family. Meanwhile, the brothers' fund's 2014 divestment from fossil fuels marked a profound pivot, reallocating $50 billion in assets toward clean energy, a decision born from climate advocacy that built tension with the oil-derived wealth of yesteryear, resolving in investments in solar farms and wind turbines that mirrored ancient Egyptian sails lubricated with pitch for Nile voyages, harnessing natural forces in harmony rather than extraction. A great-great-granddaughter blended heritage with contemporary flair through her 2015 fashion line launch, drawing on equestrian motifs from the family's stables, yet her quiet support for animal welfare causes tied back to ancient Native American tribes like the Navajo, who use seep oil as protective salves for livestock, a forgotten bond between human and beast that added layers of empathy to the narrative. Deeper mysteries surfaced in documents from the 1970s, revealing Nelson's vice presidential role under Ford, where he chaired commissions on CIA activities, uncovering covert operations that evoked the espionage of ancient Assyrian spies who inscribed intelligence on oil-sealed clay tablets, buried for kings to unearth in times of need, a parallel of intrigue that infused his political legacy with shadowy undertones. His fascination with the paranormal extended to funding the 1993 UFO briefing document, presented to policymakers, probing extraterrestrial phenomena with scientific rigor, as if channeling the stargazers of ancient Babylon who charted omens in the night sky while burning petroleum incense to invoke divine clarity, a blend of skepticism and wonder that resolved in broader explorations of consciousness through grants to neuroscience. In agriculture's evolution, the Foundation's continued support for the International Rice Research Institute, founded in 1960, yielded flood-resistant varieties that fed billions, echoing the resilient crops of ancient Sumerians who lined canals with bitumen to combat salinization, ensuring bountiful harvests amid environmental challenges, a cycle of sustenance that addressed global hunger crises into the 21st century. Arkansas' legacy endured through the International Institute, advancing rural development worldwide, with programs in sustainable farming that paralleled ancient Chinese terrace fields oiled against erosion, a harmonious approach to land stewardship. As pandemics like COVID-19 ravaged the globe in 2020, funded entities like the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations accelerated vaccine development, drawing on decades of virology expertise that tied back to ancient Inca healers using petroleum-derived tars for wound dressings during plagues, a primordial defense against infection that whispered through modern mRNA breakthroughs. Family archives, opened selectively in the 2010s, revealed John's unpublished correspondence with theologians, pondering oil's biblical symbolism as the anointing substance in Psalms, blending faith with industry in personal reflections that added spiritual depth to his Titan image. Today, in 2026, as artificial intelligence reshapes economies, descendants like those in the fourth and fifth generations invest in ethical AI through family offices, ensuring technology serves humanity, much as ancient Greek philosophers debated automata while oiling mechanical wonders in Alexandria's libraries, a quest for wisdom amid invention. Environmental initiatives flourish, with the Climate Solutions Fund backing carbon capture technologies that sequester emissions, redeeming the carbon footprint of oils past by mimicking natural processes where ancient peat bogs trapped hydrocarbons over, closing a geological loop. Cultural patronage continues via the David Fund, supporting artists who explore themes of legacy and transformation, their canvases sometimes incorporating modern equivalents of ancient pigments mixed with oil binders, evoking the cave paintings of Lascaux sealed against time. Through triumphs and tribulations, from banking empires to political pursuits, the saga unfolds as a testament to reinvention, where ambition's fire, kindled by the Earth's dark gift, illuminates paths of progress, woven with enigmas from antiquity's oil mystics, who saw in its depths not just fuel but the essence of creation itself, now settling into the peaceful cadence of eternity's song, where shadows dance with light in endless repose. As the horizons of human achievement expand into the realms of biotechnology and sustainable innovation, the family's enduring saga adapts to the challenges of a warming world and a digitally interconnected society, revealing hidden synergies between the ancient Persian alchemists who refined naphtha into life-extending tonics under the veil of desert nights, and the Foundation's cutting-edge investments in genomic editing that promise to extend healthy. A continuum of curiosity that soothes the mind like a gentle breeze through timeless oases, guiding you deeper into the serene folds of historical contemplation, where rest awaits like an unspoken promise. In the tumultuous years following the global pandemic of 2020, the Foundation emerged as a beacon of resilience, committing over $100 million to its Food is Medicine initiative, harnessing nutrition to combat diet-related diseases and potentially slashing $1 trillion in U.S. healthcare costs, efforts that echoed the ancient Roman physicians who prescribed bitumen-infused diets for vitality, blending olive oil with pitch from Sicilian seeps to fortify soldiers against ailments. A forgotten dietary wisdom that resurfaced in modern programs like the Foundation's January 2026 launch of a $10 million fund to accelerate food is medicine adoption across American communities, fostering partnerships with healthcare providers to integrate fresh produce prescriptions into everyday wellness. This culinary crusade built upon the Foundation's collaboration with Germany's BMZ, the Foundation, and the World Food in early 2026 to unveil a school meals accelerator, aiming to deliver nutritious meals to an additional 100 million children worldwide, a global outreach that paralleled the communal feasts of ancient Mesopotamian temples, where oil-sealed grain stores sustained populations during famines, ensuring societal harmony through shared sustenance. Amid these benevolent strides, the family's moral compass sharpened against the backdrop of climate urgency, with descendants like David Kaiser and Wayne publicly decrying stance on global warming in 2016, labeling the company, born from Standard Oil's fragments, as morally bankrupt, a familial rift that deepened the narrative's tension, resolving in the Foundation's historic 2020 pledge to divest entirely from fossil fuels, liquidating holdings in a $5 billion endowment that symbolized a profound atonement, much as ancient Assyrian kings renounced war spoils to fund peaceful ziggurats lined with bitumen for eternal stability. This divestment wave, initiated by the Brothers Fund in 2014 and amplified by the Family Fund in 2016, culminated in Lambert and Peter Gilcase's 2021 launch of the Equation Campaign, a decade-long initiative funneling resources to halt new fossil fuel developments, weaving environmental activism into the family's fabric like the eco-conscious rituals of ancient Native American tribes who revered seep oil as a sacred, non-exploitative gift from the Earth Mother, used sparingly in healing ceremonies rather than rampant extraction. David, the steward of the fourth generation, continued this vigilant guardianship, overseeing the family's trusts that preserved an $8.4 billion net worth spread across 170 heirs by 2024, rising to estimates of $10.3 billion amid strategic investments, his leadership echoing the irrevocable trusts established by John D. In 1934 and 1952, legal fortresses that shielded wealth from taxes while mandating philanthropy, much like the sealed vaults of Egyptian pharaohs guarded by petroleum mummies, ensuring legacies transcended mortal bounds. In the financial arena, capital management marked a triumphant milestone in October 2025, with a recapitalization valuing the firm at over $6.6 billion, welcoming new investors like Moose Partners, Progeny 3, and Capital alongside Viking Global Investors and the family, an alliance that bolstered client assets to $187 billion, blending old money with fresh vision in a manner reminiscent of medieval Venetian merchant guilds who traded oil derivatives across seas, forging bonds that fortunes through shared enterprise. Cultural patronage flourished anew with the 2022 opening of the David Creative Arts Center at the Center in New York, a venue inviting diverse artists and audiences to the family estate, revitalizing the grounds with performances and exhibitions that honored indigenous art, as seen in the Metropolitan Museum's 2025 Michael C. Wing expansion, championed by Mary Morgan, twin sister to the vanished explorer Michael, to celebrate oceanic and African collections, a tribute laced with personal mystery surrounding Michael's 1961 disappearance in New Guinea, whispers of which added ethereal depth to the family's artistic endeavors, much like the lost artifacts of Atlantean lore rumored to be preserved in oil-sealed chambers. Seventh generation, numbering over 150 descendants, upheld traditions through collaborative initiatives, with 89 members of the fifth and sixth generations pooling talents in shared decision-making forums, funding projects from community gardens to the rehabilitation of abandoned gas stations into eco-friendly parks via Cornerstone Parks Fund. Transformative acts that mirrored ancient Chinese communal efforts to reclaim saline lands with oil-based sealants for fertile rebirth. In the creative sphere, the Foundation's January 2026 release of the Food 2050 documentary explored sustainable feeding strategies for a planet of 10 billion, a visionary film that tied back to John's early agricultural grants, evoking the prophetic visions of Chaldean oracles who gazed into bubbling petroleum pools to foresee bountiful harvests. Family values endured through practices like Capital Management's Family Values and Dynamics program, led by offering lenses on personal, professional, and financial capital to prepare heirs for legacy, a structured discipline akin to the generational teachings of ancient Hebrew patriarchs, passing down wisdom inscribed on oil-preserved parchments. Amid these evolutions, plot twists arose in the form of internal reckonings, such as the 2020 call by 3 for banks like Chase to cease financing fossil fuels, leveraging lending power to curb emissions, a bold stance that resolved in broader industry shifts toward green finance. Through scandals weathered and triumphs amplified, from the arts to international trade, the Odyssey stands as a mosaic of structure, discipline, and vision, where the primordial essence of oil, once tamed by Babylonian diviners for omens of prosperity, now fuels a pivot to renewal, inviting contemplation on humanity's capacity for redemption as the narrative drifts into the quiet expanse of timeless legacy, where echoes of ambition harmonize with the soft hum of eternal progress. As the digital threads of global connectivity weave ever in this era of quantum leaps and sustainable horizons, the Foundation stands as a vigilant architect of tomorrow, its initiatives in January 2026 alone illuminating paths toward equity and resilience, much like the ancient Arabian alchemists who harnessed naphtha's glow to illuminate manuscripts of wisdom in the House of Wisdom, their lamps casting shadows that danced with secrets of health and harmony. Now echoed in the Foundation's bold commitments that soothe the collective soul with visions of a nourished, empowered world, inviting your thoughts to unwind like silken strands in the gentle breeze of progressive legacy. Fresh from the dawn of the new year, the Foundation unveiled the Big Bets Fellowship for its U.S. Cohort 2026, with applications opening to visionary leaders crafting entrepreneurial solutions, resilient systems, and policies that bridge people to opportunity, fortifying economic bulwarks while benefiting both humanity and the planet. A call to action that demands projects rooted in American states and directly uplifting local communities. Blending innovation with grassroots impact in a manner reminiscent of ancient Sumerian innovators who sealed communal granaries with bitumen to preserve harvests for collective prosperity, ensuring no one was left in the shadows of scarcity. Building on this momentum, on January 16, 2026, the School Meals Accelerator burst forth in partnership with Germany's BMZ, the Foundation, and the World Food, a collaborative force aimed at empowering governments to deliver nutritious meals to an additional 100 million children worldwide, transforming school cafeterias into bastions of health and learning, much as ancient Egyptian temple schools distributed oil-infused breads to young scribes. Fostering minds and bodies in rituals of communal sustenance, that whispered of enduring vitality. Just a day prior, on January 15, 2026, the foundation ignited a $10 million fund dedicated to accelerating food is medicine programs across the United States, a strategic infusion to combat diet-related diseases that plague millions, potentially slashing a staggering $1 trillion in healthcare costs through rigorous research, innovative programs, and cross-sector partnerships, an endeavor that revives the healing essences once distilled by medieval Persian physicians from petroleum bases, mixing them with herbs to mend ailments of the gut and spirit. A forgotten alchemy now reborn in modern prescriptions of fresh produce and nutritional wisdom. Complementing this, the January 14, 2026, premiere of the Food 2050 documentary delved into visionary strategies for sustaining a planet swelling to 10 billion souls, exploring regenerative agriculture and equitable food systems that tie directly to the foundation's overarching $100 million food is medicine investment, addressing chronic illnesses with the simple power of wholesome eating. While the Regenerative School Meals Initiative connects these efforts to soil restoration and support for 1.5 billion farming families grappling with climate's caprice, ensuring over 300 million children receive daily nourishment that echoes the bountiful feasts of ancient Indus Valley harvests, preserved against floods by petroleum-sealed channels of abundance. In the realm of climate and energy, the Foundation's spotlight on nuclear power's role in slashing clean energy costs by 2 to 31% in developing nations, by harmonizing with renewables and easing infrastructure burdens, resonates with the outcomes of COP30, where calls for climate-smart development, local leadership, and reformed finance paved ways for resilient economies, much like ancient Byzantine strategists who fortified cities with petroleum fire barriers, turning potential devastation into enduring strength. The Mission 300 endures as a beacon, striving to electrify 300 million lives in Africa by 2030, unlocking doors to opportunity and shared prosperity through innovative grids that parallel the bamboo pipelines of Han Dynasty China, channeling natural gas for communal light and warmth without ravaging the earth. Equity pulses through all, from health partnerships mitigating climate's toll on livelihoods to collaborations with global South nations on transition mineral policies, sharing real-time insights to safeguard communities and spur economic growth. A diplomatic dance akin to the Silk Road traders who bartered oil secrets for mutual enrichment. Though the archives of 2026 whisper little of individual kin in these announcements, the family's indelible imprint shines in every metric-driven partnership, from Dr. Rajiv J. Shah's playbook on scaling big bets to the quiet stewardship of trusts that perpetuate giving, ensuring the oil baron's vision evolves into a symphony of innovation where ancient mysteries, of bitumen omens foretelling bountiful futures in Chaldean bowls, merge with contemporary quests for a just world, lulling the spirit with tales of redemption and renewal as the veil of night descends in peaceful embrace. As the pulse of innovation quickens in the heart of a world hungry for sustainable solutions, the Foundation's endeavors in early 2026 unfold like the deliberate unfurling of an ancient scroll, revealing strategies to nourish billions while honoring the Earth's ancient gifts, much as the alchemists of Baghdad's House of Wisdom in the 8th century distilled petroleum essences into medicinal brews that healed the afflicted and illuminated the path to longevity. A timeless pursuit now mirrored in the Foundation's relentless drive to transform food into medicine, inviting your imagination to wander through these modern marvels as a calming mist settles over the landscape of legacy, easing you into the velvet depths of restorative slumber. On January 15, 2026, in a move that echoed the collaborative counsels of ancient Persian healers pooling resources to combat famines, the foundation joined forces with Builder's vision to launch the Food is Medicine Impact Fund, a $10 million beacon hosted by RF Catalytic Capital. Designed to uplift the health of millions grappling with chronic, diet-related ailments across the United States, channeling investments into scalable programs like Produce prescriptions, medically tailored groceries, and nourishing meals that have long proven their power to mend bodies and curb soaring healthcare costs, potentially trimming a colossal $1 trillion from the nation's burden, yet often languish in pilot phases due to fragmented efforts and limited awareness, a challenge the fund addresses head-on by inaugurating a state officer program managed by the Center for Healthcare Strategies, empowering up to 10 states over 3 years to appoint dedicated leaders who orchestrate policies, fortify implementations, and tailor initiatives to the unique nutritional needs of their residents. Embedding nutrition as the cornerstone of preventive care, much like the bitumen-infused remedies of Egyptian apothecaries that preserved vitality in the face of Nile-borne plagues. This initiative builds upon the Foundation's broader $100 million commitment announced in 2024 to expand Food is Medicine access, regenerative school meals, and the Periodic Table of Food initiative, which maps the world's edible biodiversity with standardized tools and data, reviving the cataloging zeal of ancient Babylonian scholars who etched food properties onto clay tablets sealed with oil to guide healers through seasons of scarcity. Just a day earlier, on January 14, 2026, the premiere of the Food 2050 documentary in Los Angeles, narrated by the resonant voice of Academy Award winner Viola Davis, and crafted in partnership with Media Red and Food Tank, cast a spotlight on the imperative to feed a burgeoning global population of 10 billion by mid-century through regenerative, equitable systems. Showcasing innovators from indigenous communities reclaiming ancestral farming practices to scientists engineering climate-resilient crops, a cinematic journey born from the Foundation's Food System Vision Prize that empowered local visions of abundance. Much as ancient Mayan codices illustrated sustainable agriculture with inks derived from natural resins, preserving knowledge that sustained empires against environmental whims. With the film's next screening slated for the Film Festival on January 24, 2026, amid plans for a sweeping impact campaign to inspire action worldwide. Then, on January 16, 2026, in Berlin, the Foundation allied with Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, the Foundation, and the World Food to unveil the groundbreaking School Meals Accelerator, a first-of-its-kind venture poised to deliver nutritious, regenerative meals to an additional 100 million children globally by 2030, transforming political pledges into robust national programs that nourish young minds, bolster local farmers, and enhance food security, as articulated by Elizabeth, the Foundation's Executive Vice President of Programs, who heralded school meals as an powerhouse of development, part of this $100 million pledge to this cause, echoing the communal dining halls of ancient Greek academies where olive oil-laced repasts fueled philosophical discourse and communal well-being. These synchronized launches in mid-January 2026, from the Food is Medicine Fund's focus on state-level orchestration to the documentary's visionary storytelling, and the accelerator's global reach, weave a narrative of interconnected progress, supported by over $220 million in nutrition investments since 2019, including $20 million for the periodic table of food to decode edible wonders, all while drawing subtle threads to antiquity's oil guardians, like the Hittite artisans who fireproofed chariots with petroleum coatings for battles of survival, infusing the legacy with a profound sense of cyclical redemption, where the Earth's dark bounty, once harnessed for industrial might, now fuels a healing renaissance, allowing the story's gentle cadence to carry you further into the tranquil realms of reflection and renewal. As the soft glow of dawn filters through the windows of innovation labs across continents, where scientists in white coats pore over data streams that map the nutritional fingerprints of thousands of global foods, the Foundation's vision for a healthier planet sharpens into crystalline focus, much like the ancient Sumerian priests who studied the patterns in bitumen pools to predict floods and harvests. Their divinations now reborn in algorithms that forecast food security for generations yet unborn, allowing this flowing chronicle to carry you deeper into a realm of quiet wonder, where each revelation settles like warm sunlight on still water, coaxing your eyelids to grow heavy and your breathing slow and even. In the weeks following the January 2026 announcements, the Foundation quietly expanded its periodic table of food initiative, a global scientific collaboration that had already cataloged over 1,000 foods by the end of 2025, now accelerating to sequence the biochemical makeup of 10,000 species by 2030, with new partnerships announced in February 2026 with universities in Brazil, India, and Kenya to include underrepresented crops like teff and moringa, plants that sustained ancient African and South American civilizations through droughts and migrations, their resilience encoded in seeds that once traveled along trade routes sealed with natural resins, a living archive now digitized and freely accessible to researchers and policymakers, empowering them to design diets that combat malnutrition while restoring degraded soils. This scientific endeavor dovetailed seamlessly with the Food is Medicine Impact Fund, which by mid-February 2026 had received over 200 applications from health systems and community organizations eager to pilot programs. From hospital kitchens preparing medically tailored meals for heart failure patients, to mobile clinics in rural Appalachia distributing produce boxes, alongside diabetes education. Initiatives that drew on evidence from earlier pilots showing reductions in hospital readmissions by up to 40%, a quiet revolution in preventive care that echoed the preventive medicine of ancient Chinese physicians who prescribed oils and herbs from seep sources to balance the body's qi. Their holistic approach, now validated by modern clinical trials, funded through the Foundation's network. Meanwhile, the School Meals Accelerator, after its Berlin launch, moved swiftly into implementation planning, with initial commitments from governments in Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Guatemala to integrate regenerative farming practices into their national programs, ensuring that the food served in school cafeterias not only nourished children, but also enriched the soil through cover crops and reduced tillage, practices that revived the terraced agriculture of the Inca, whose stone channels, lined with natural sealants, protected mountain farms from erosion for centuries. The Food 2050 documentary, fresh from its premiere on January 24, 2026, began a nationwide tour of screenings in community centers and universities, accompanied by panel discussions that sparked local action, from city councils adopting food waste reduction ordinances to farmers' cooperatives experimenting with agroforestry. The film's narrative arc, beginning with the vulnerabilities of industrial agriculture and culminating in hopeful visions of decentralized, regenerative systems, resonating with audiences as a modern parable of stewardship, much like the epic tales of ancient Mesopotamian farmers who invoked God of fresh water and wisdom to guide them in cultivating the Fertile Crescent without exhausting the land. In parallel, the Foundation's climate team deepened its engagement with transition minerals, hosting virtual in February 2026 with policymakers from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Chile, and Indonesia, nations rich in cobalt, lithium, and nickel, to develop equitable extraction frameworks that protect communities and ecosystems, drawing lessons from historical resource booms that left behind landscapes, a deliberate contrast to the oil era's legacy, where the name once symbolized extraction, yet now champions responsible sourcing that powers the batteries of electric vehicles and renewable grids. Lesser known but equally significant was the Foundation's support for the Global Methane Pledge, announced in late January 2026 at a side event of the World Economic Forum, where it pledged technical assistance to 50 countries to reduce methane emissions from agriculture and waste, a potent greenhouse gas whose short-term warming impact dwarfs carbon dioxide, with pilot projects in India and Mexico demonstrating how simple changes, like covering manure lagoons or shifting rice paddy irrigation, could cut emissions by 30% while boosting yields, innovations that recalled the ancient practice of layering organic matter in fields to capture gases and enrich soil, a low-tech harmony with nature that modern science is rediscovering. Through these efforts, the Foundation in 2026 embodied a quiet transformation. From the industrial titan who once controlled the flow of kerosene to the quiet force that now redirects the flow of knowledge, capital, and compassion toward planetary healing, weaving ancient wisdom, where oil was both healer and illuminator, into the fabric of a regenerative future, where every meal, every school lunch, every healed acre becomes a small act of redemption, allowing the narrative to drift onward like a slow river under moonlight, carrying you gently toward the peaceful shores of sleep. As the golden hues of a Dhaka sunset filter through your window on this tranquil January evening in 2026, the Foundation's cascade of mid-month announcements continues to ripple outward, carrying forward the timeless quest to nourish body and planet in ways that echo the ancient guardians of Earth's hidden elixirs, those Mesopotamian priests who once sealed sacred oils in clay jars to sustain life through famine and flood. Their rituals a quiet prayer for abundance now mirrored in these modern, meticulously crafted initiatives that invite your mind to soften, your breathing to slow, and your spirit to drift peacefully into the embrace of restful dreams. With the Food 2050 documentary still fresh from its Los Angeles premiere on January 14 at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, where Academy Award winner Viola Davis's narration wove together stories of 10 extraordinary visionaries from the Food System Vision Prize, from Dutch farmers regenerating salt-damaged lands to Chinese innovators in Provence pioneering climate-smart rice cultivation. The film stands as a beacon of hope. Set to screen next on January 24, before launching a wider impact campaign throughout the year. Rooted in the Foundation's earlier Food System Vision Prize, which empowered communities worldwide to blueprint regenerative, equitable food futures, Food 2050 captures not dystopia but inspiration. Indigenous seed keepers reclaiming ancestral varieties, urban growers turning concrete into green oases, and scientists mapping the nutritional secrets of forgotten crops through the periodic table of food initiative, all part of over $220 million in commitments that include $100 million for regenerative school meals and another $100 million advancing food is medicine solutions in the United States. This cinematic spark ignited the very next day, January 15, when the Foundation, partnering with Builder's Vision, officially launched the Food is Medicine Impact Fund, a $10 million philanthropic vehicle hosted by RF Catalytic Capital, to propel proven interventions like produce prescriptions, medically tailored meals, and healthy grocery programs from promising pilots into durable, nationwide systems. Targeting the millions of Americans burdened by chronic diet-related conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. The fund's inaugural move channels resources into a state officer program, overseen by the Center for Healthcare Strategies, which will embed dedicated leaders in up to 10 states over 3 years to coordinate policy, build infrastructure, raise awareness, and integrate nutrition directly into healthcare delivery. This structured approach revives the precision of ancient apothecaries, who standardized bitumen-based tonics for communal healing, ensuring equitable access regardless of ability to pay, while building on the Foundation's 2024 $100 million big bet to embed food is medicine in health systems through partnerships with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and the Department of Health and Human Services, efforts that promise to avert enormous healthcare costs and foster preventive wellness at scale. The momentum crested on January 16 in Berlin, during the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture, as the Foundation joined Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, the Foundation, and the World Food to unveil the pioneering School Meals Accelerator, a collaborative powerhouse kicking off with more than $80 million from the founding partners, bolstered by additional support from France and the Global Partnership for Education, aiming to reach an additional 100 million children by 2030 across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The accelerator provides demand-driven technical assistance to governments, transforming political commitments into robust, nationally owned programs that deliver nutritious, locally sourced, regenerative meals, nourishing young minds, supporting smallholder farmers, enhancing food security, and strengthening community resilience. As Elizabeth, the Foundation's Executive Vice President of Programs, emphasized, school meals represent one of development's most powerful yet investments, turning daily nutrition into a multiplier for education, health, and economic growth, all aligned with the Foundation's $100 million pledge to advance regenerative school meals globally. These interconnected launches, documentary storytelling to inspire, state-level infrastructure to implement, and international acceleration to scale, form a harmonious triad, each amplifying the others in service of a world where food heals rather than harms. They draw subtle, profound parallels to antiquity's oil mystics, who divined prosperity from swirling patterns in sacred vessels, their knowledge preserved across now manifesting in data-driven tools like the periodic table of food, which catalogs edible biodiversity to unlock nutritional treasures long overlooked. In quieter family echoes, the name continues its stewardship. The Brothers Fund's thoughtful 2026 pause on tour to reimagine visitor experiences with enhanced accessibility and new sculpture walks, resuming in 2027. Capital Management's forward-looking 2026 market outlooks navigating AI optimism and economic shifts, and the ongoing Big Bets Fellowship applications for the U.S. cohort, empowering leaders to build resilient systems amid disruption. As these threads converge in the early days of 2026, the legacy of John D., once forged in the relentless pursuit of black gold, now flows into rivers of renewal, closing ancient cycles of extraction with contemporary circles of restoration, where ambition yields to equity and the earth's dark gifts become light for all. Let this gentle unfolding carry you onward, your eyelids growing heavier, your thoughts dissolving into the soft hush of night, where dreams of a nourished tomorrow await in peaceful silence. As the soft afternoon light of January 2026, filters across the bustling streets of Dhaka and the quiet estates of hills alike, the saga continues to unfold in ways that bridge the industrial grit of America's Gilded Age with the urgent calls for global equity and renewal today. A legacy rooted in the disciplined vision of John D., whose fortune once flowed from the black gold of Pennsylvania fields, now channeled into healing the planet and its people, much as ancient Mesopotamian priests once used bitumen from sacred seeps to seal vessels of grain and preserve life through seasons of want, inviting you to settle deeper into this flowing tale, your thoughts easing like a river finding its calm course toward peaceful slumber. In the heart of this new year, the Foundation's January announcements have captured the imagination of Americans and the world alike, beginning with the January 14 premiere of Food 2050 at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles, a powerful documentary narrated by Academy Award winner Viola Davis that spotlights real solutions to feeding a projected 10 billion people by mid-century through nourishing, regenerative, and equitable systems. Born from the Foundation's Food System Vision Prize, which empowered communities to craft place-based blueprints for tomorrow, the film features 10 visionaries, from Dutch farmers regenerating salt-damaged lands to indigenous seed keepers in the Americas reclaiming ancestral varieties, highlighting innovations like climate-smart rice in China's province and urban growers turning concrete jungles into green abundance. With a next screening on January 24 and a broader impact campaign planned throughout 2026, Food 2050 serves as an inspiring call to action, part of the Foundation's more than $220 million invested in nutrition since 2019, including $20 million for the Periodic Table of Food initiative that maps the world's edible biodiversity with scientific precision, unlocking forgotten nutritional treasures in a manner reminiscent of Babylonian scribes cataloging sustenance on oil-sealed clay tablets for future generations. The very next day, January 15, brought the launch of the Food is Medicine Impact Fund, a $10 million partnership between the Foundation and Builders Vision, hosted by RF Catalytic Capital, to accelerate the nationwide adoption of high-quality food is medicine programs in the United States, targeting the millions of Americans facing chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and obesity tied to poor nutrition. The fund focuses on proven interventions such as produce prescriptions, medically tailored groceries, and nourishing meals that improve health outcomes and promise to reduce staggering healthcare costs, potentially by up to $1 trillion. Its first major investment launches the State Officer Program, managed by the Center for Healthcare Strategies, which will place dedicated leaders in up to 10 states over 3 years to build policy frameworks, coordinate implementation, raise awareness, and integrate nutrition seamlessly into healthcare systems. This builds directly on the Foundation's 2024 $100 million big bet to expand food is medicine access through partnerships with federal agencies like the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and Health and Human Services, embedding preventive nutrition as a core pillar of American wellness, in a way that echoes the communal healing rituals of ancient Egyptian healers, who distributed bitumen-mixed remedies to fortify the people against Nile-borne ills. Then, on January 16 in Berlin during the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture, the Foundation teamed with Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, the Foundation, and the World Food to introduce the school meals, Accelerator, a groundbreaking initiative starting with over $80 million from the partners, plus support from France and the Global Partnership for Education, to help governments deliver nutritious, regenerative, homegrown school meals to an additional 100 million children by 2030 across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. As Elizabeth, the Foundation's Executive Vice President of Programs, noted, school meals stand as one of development's most powerful yet tools, turning daily nutrition into multipliers for education, health, farmer support, and community resilience, aligning perfectly with the Foundation's $100 million commitment to regenerative school meals that nourish young minds while restoring soils and strengthening local economies. These 3 January milestones, the documentary storytelling spark, the U.S. Focused Impact Fund's infrastructure building, and the Global Accelerator's scaling ambition, interlock like pieces of a grand mosaic, each amplifying the others in pursuit of a world where food becomes medicine, equity replaces scarcity, and regeneration heals what extraction once strained. In quieter but meaningful family echoes across America, the Brothers Fund announced in early January that public tour of the historic estate at Hills will remain on hiatus throughout 2026 to allow for a holistic reimagining of the visitation program, including upgrades like new visitor parking and a sculpture walk, with tour set to resume in 2027 under in-house management for a more streamlined, accessible experience that expands public engagement with the entire campus, arts, architecture, philanthropy, and history woven together. This thoughtful pause reflects the family's enduring stewardship, preserving the Beaux Arts Villa and Gardens, home to 4 generations since John D. for future appreciation, while other activities, from artist residencies to conferences, continue uninterrupted. Meanwhile, Capital Management released its 2026 investment outlooks, offering disciplined perspectives on global and international equities, thematic strategies, small and SMID caps, taxable and municipal fixed income, and more, guided by the same legacy of prudence that John instilled in his ledgers over a century ago. Conversations with leaders like CEO Greg Fleming and Chairman highlight trends such as AI's potential maturation beyond hype, the spread of deregulation worldwide, and opportunities in quality international stocks, all framed through a lens of long-term client partnership and measured risk. Through these contemporary chapters, from cinematic inspiration and health equity funds in the heartland to global school nutrition alliances and estate preservation, the name endures as a force for thoughtful progress in America and beyond, transforming the once ruthless pursuit of oil wealth into enduring commitments to nourishment, healing, and renewal. It closes ancient loops where Earth's dark gifts sustained empires, now repurposed to sustain humanity's future, lulling the listener with tales of quiet ambition yielding to shared abundance as the day fades into the gentle hush of evening. As the gentle January twilight settles over Dhaka's bustling lanes and the distant Hudson Valley estates alike on this peaceful evening of January 2026, the story flows onward like a quiet river through America's long history, carrying the echoes of a poor boy born in a clapboard house in New York in 1839, through the roaring oil fields of Pennsylvania, the marble corridors of power, and now into the bright laboratories and community gardens of today, where the same disciplined spirit that once tallied every penny in a small ledger now tallies lives saved and soils restored, inviting you to lean back, let your shoulders soften, and allow this soothing chronicle of one family's improbable arc to carry you gently toward the calm shores of sleep. Picture the America of the 1840s and 1850s, wooden towns rising along canals and early railroads, a young nation still stitching itself together after the Revolution and before the great fracture of civil war. Into this world came John, the second of 6 children born to and the elusive William. His mother, a devout Baptist of Scottish descent, taught him thrift with iron certainty. Every coin earned from selling turkeys or candy must be saved, tithed to the church, and never wasted. His father, a bigamist and patent medicine salesman who vanished for months at a time, left lessons of a different kind, lessons in self-reliance born from absence and instability. By age 16, after the family had moved to Cleveland to escape mounting small-town scandals, John found steady work as an assistant bookkeeper at End, earning 50 cents a day yet recording every transaction with meticulous care in his personal ledger, a habit that would define his life. He attended Sunday school, prayed earnestly, and quietly loaned small sums at interest to neighbors, compounding his savings even as the Panic of 1857 swept the country and left others bankrupt. When war clouds gathered in 1861, John did not enlist. Instead, he partnered with B. Clark in Produce Commission trading, supplying Union armies while carefully avoiding the speculative frenzy that consumed so many. By 1863, he had saved enough to marry Laura, a schoolteacher whose abolitionist family had sheltered runaway slaves, and together they built a life of quiet discipline. 5 children, no ostentation, Bible readings every evening. Yet the real turning point came with the kerosene boom. In 1863, at age 24, entered the refining business, not the risky drilling fields of Titusville, but the steadier art of turning crude oil into clean, bright-burning illuminant. He understood what few others did: control the refining, control the pipelines, control the railroads, control the market. In 1870, he incorporated Standard Oil of Ohio with a handful of partners, and from that modest Cleveland office, the empire grew with breathtaking speed. Through the 1870s and 1880s, Standard Oil became synonymous with ruthless efficiency. Secret railroad rebates crushed competitors. Vertical integration from barrel making to marketing locked in profits. The trust form of 1882, pooling shares of dozens of companies under a single board, created what many called the first great American monopoly. By 1890, it refined nearly 90% of U.S. oil, its blue barrels rolling across the continent, its kerosene lamps lighting homes from New York tenements to frontier cabins. Yet the same years brought growing public outrage. Ida's 19-part ins magazine, beginning in 1902, painted as a cold predator who ruined small refiners and manipulated prices. Muckrakers, progressive reformers, and politicians seized the narrative. In 1906, the government filed its antitrust suit under the Sherman Act. After years of litigation, on May 15, 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Standard Oil dissolved into 34 separate companies, Chevron and others among them. The breakup, intended to curb power, instead wealth as the independent pieces soared in value. His personal fortune, already enormous, swelled further. By then, however, the man himself had long since stepped back from daily management. A mysterious illness in the early 1890s, nervous exhaustion, digestive troubles, and the onset of alopecia that left him completely hairless, prompted semi-retirement at 52. He turned to golf, Bible study, and philanthropy on a scale never before seen. He founded the University of Chicago in 1890 with an initial gift of $600,000 that grew to over $35 million. He established the Institute for Medical Research, now University, in 1901, which pioneered yellow fever vaccines and laid groundwork for modern virology. The foundation, created in 1913 with an eventual endowment of nearly $500 million in his lifetime, waged war on hookworm across the American South, funded public health campaigns worldwide, and supported the Green Revolution that saved hundreds of millions from starvation in Asia and Latin America. His private life remained austere. He lived simply in Forest Hill and later Hills, drank orange juice, played golf into his 90s, distributed shiny dimes to children as a whimsical reminder of thrift. When the massacre of 1914 stained the family name, Colorado Fuel and Iron Guards killed striking miners, John responded with labor reforms and public relations efforts that softened the image. Died quietly on May 23, 1937, at age 97 in Beach, Florida, having given away more than $530 million in his lifetime, the largest philanthropic record of his era. The baton passed to John D., who preserved colonial Williamsburg Created Center, donated land for the United Nations headquarters, and established national parks. His sons, Nelson David, John III, carried the name into politics, banking, conservation, and global affairs. Nelson became vice president. David shaped international finance, protected wilderness, governed Arkansas with progressive reforms. Today, in 2026, the seventh generation, more than 170 heirs, continues the work through foundations that divest from fossil fuels, fund climate solutions, and champion food is medicine, school meal accelerators, and regenerative agriculture across America and beyond. From the kerosene-lit homes of the 1870s to the Produce prescription programs reaching veterans and low-income families in 2026, the arc remains one of accumulation turned outward, of ruthless efficiency transformed into systematic giving. It is an American story of immigrant grit, industrial triumph, public reckoning, and redemptive generosity, woven through more than 180 years, still unfolding in quiet, determined ways that touch millions every day. Let these long currents of history carry your thoughts now into stillness, where ambition rests and gratitude breathes softly, welcoming the gentle tide of sleep. As the warm January afternoon of 2026 lingers in the streets of Dhaka and the quiet valleys of upstate New York alike, the long American thread of the story keeps weaving itself forward, a single continuous line that stretches from the muddy oil fields of 1860s Pennsylvania to the bright community clinics and school cafeterias of today. Carrying the same quiet determination that once turned a teenage bookkeeper's 50-cent daily wage into the greatest private fortune the world had ever seen, now transformed into billions given away in the service of health, education, and a planet that can still breathe. Let the gentle rhythm of this history settle over you like a soft blanket, your breathing slowing, your thoughts drifting downstream toward the peaceful stillness that waits just beyond the horizon. John D.'s childhood unfolded in a series of modest clapboard houses across upstate New York, and then Cleveland, places where the smell of wood smoke mingled with the faint scent of kerosene lamps that would one day bear his name. His mother kept the household running on prayer, hard work, and unbreakable rules. No debt, no waste, 10% of every penny to the church. She read the Bible aloud each evening, her voice steady against the uncertainty her husband brought home in sporadic bursts. William, tall, charming, and unreliable, came and went like a traveling salesman in his own family life. He sold patent medicines of dubious value, posed as a deaf-mute to gain sympathy while peddling, and maintained a second wife and family under an assumed name hundreds of miles away. Neighbors whispered of Devil Bill, of horse thievery, of a rape charge that mysteriously vanished before trial. Young John learned early that trust must be earned, that stability is built brick by careful brick, and that money, once in hand, should never slip away. By 1853, the family had fled to Cleveland seeking a fresh start. At 16, John enrolled briefly in a commercial college, then walked the streets looking for work until he found a position as assistant bookkeeper at End. He arrived at 6:30 a.m., left at 10:30 p.m., when the last ledger balanced, and earned 50 cents a day. Every Sunday he walked to the Erie Street Baptist Church, placed 10% of his wages in the collection plate, and recorded the gift in his personal ledger alongside every other transaction. He never borrowed, never speculated wildly, never drank, never gambled. When the panic of 1857 bankrupted businesses all around him, he kept his job and quietly loaned small sums to neighbors at 12% interest, money he had saved, money that worked for him even while he slept. The Civil War arrived in 1861. John did not enlist. Instead, he partnered with B. Clark in a produce commission business that supplied Union armies with hay, grain, and meat. Profits mounted steadily. In 1863, at 24, he invested $4,000, the bulk of his savings, in a small refinery on Cleveland's flats along the river. He understood something fundamental. Drilling for oil was a gamble of gushers and dry holes, but refining crude into kerosene was a manufacturing process that could be controlled, improved, scaled. He built better stills, hired meticulous chemists, reduced waste to almost nothing. By 1865, he bought out Clark, brought in his brother William, and formed End. In 1870, at 31, he incorporated Standard Oil of Ohio with a capital of $1 million. The company grew like a living thing, efficient, relentless, adaptive. The 1870s were the decade of consolidation. Negotiated secret freight rebates with railroads, lower rates for Standard's enormous shipments, drawbacks on competitors' shipments, until rivals could not compete on price. He bought them out, absorbed their plants, kept the best managers, closed the inefficient ones. He purchased barrel factories, built pipelines to bypass railroads, invented the tank car, developed byproducts, paraffin, lubricants, Vaseline from what others called waste. By 1879, Standard controlled 90% of American refining capacity. In 1882, the Standard Oil Trust was formed, a legal innovation that allowed shares of dozens of companies to be held by a single board of trustees, centralizing control without outright ownership that violated state laws against monopolies. The trust became the symbol of concentrated economic power in the Gilded Age. Public anger grew in proportion. Small refiners ruined by rebates told their stories. Newspapers ran cartoons of as an octopus, with tentacles squeezing the life from independent businesses. In 1902, Ida M., daughter of an oil producer ruined by Standard, began her 19-part series in S magazine. She documented every secret deal, every broken promise, every life crushed. The series was a sensation. Circulation soared. President ordered the Justice Department to sue under the Sherman Antitrust Act. The case dragged through years of testimony. Himself took the stand in 1907, calm, courteous, evasive, quoting scripture when pressed on ethics. On May 15, 1911, the Supreme Court ruled the trust an illegal restraint of trade and ordered dissolution into 34 independent companies. Within a few years, the pieces, Standard of New Jersey, Standard of New York, Standard of California, Chevron, Continental Oil, Atlantic Refining, ARCO, and others, were worth far more separately than the trust had been together. The breakup meant to destroy power's wealth. Yet by 1911, the man who once obsessed over every barrel was already a semi-retired philanthropist. A breakdown in the early 1890s, exhaustion, mysterious digestive ailments, total hair loss from alopecia, had forced him to step away at 52. He wore wigs of varying lengths to simulate natural growth, played golf daily at Forest Hill or Hills, drank orange juice by the quart, ate simply, slept long hours. Philanthropy became his full-time occupation. He had already given millions to Baptist missions, to college for black women, named for his wife's family, to the University of Chicago, founded 1890 with his initial $600,000 gift that grew to over $35 million. In 1901, he created the Institute for Medical Research, which became a world leader in virology and immunology. In 1913, the foundation received its charter, eventually endowed with nearly $500 million in his lifetime, more money than the U.S. federal budget in some years of the 19th century. Through the foundation and other vehicles, he funded the eradication of hookworm in the American South, a parasite that sapped the energy of millions, built public health systems in China and Latin America, supported the Johns School of Hygiene and Public Health, backed medical education at Peking Union Medical College, financed the conquest of yellow fever, and laid groundwork for the Green Revolution that fed hundreds of millions in Asia. He gave away more than $530 million before his death, roughly 2% of today's global GDP, adjusted for the era. John D. died on May 23, 1937, at 97, in his winter home at Beach, Florida, surrounded by family, still distributing shiny dimes to children who visited, still quoting scripture, still convinced that wealth carried a divine obligation to do good. His son John D. carried the torch, restoring colonial Williamsburg Building Center, donating the land for the United Nations headquarters, creating Acadia and Great Smoky Mountains national parks. The five brothers, John III Nelson, David, extended the reach into population studies, politics, conservation, civil rights, international banking. Today, the seventh generation, more than 170 heirs, manages trusts and foundations that have divested from fossil fuels, invested in climate solutions, and funded food is medicine programs reaching veterans and low-income families across the United States. From a 50-cent-a-day ledger in Cleveland to produce prescriptions in clinics from coast to coast, from kerosene lamps in frontier cabins to regenerative school meals nourishing millions of children worldwide, the story remains unbroken. A long American arc of ambition disciplined by faith, wealth redeemed through giving, and one man's relentless ledger expanding to encompass the health and hope of countless others. Let these centuries of quiet resolve wash over you now, gentle and unhurried, carrying every worry downstream until only calm remains. As the soft January evening deepens over Dhaka on this calm 20th day of 2026, the long American river of the story continues its unhurried course, carrying the same steady current that once flowed from a teenage clerk's ink-stained fingers in Cleveland to the quiet conference rooms and research labs where today's heirs and foundation leaders plan the next steps in a century-and-a-half journey of accumulation, reckoning, and redemption. Let the familiar cadence of this history wrap around you now like the low hum of a distant train at night, comforting, familiar, carrying you gently onward toward sleep. The Empire John D. built in the 1870s and 1880s, was not born of sudden inspiration, but of relentless, almost monastic attention to detail. Every morning he arrived at the Standard Oil offices on Broadway in New York before most of his executives, sat at a plain desk, opened the ledgers, and reviewed the figures himself. He knew the cost of every barrel refined in Cleveland, every gallon shipped to Europe, every drop of waste turned into profit. When competitors complained of unfair practices, he answered simply, "We are merely economizing." Yet the rebates he secured from railroads, sometimes as high as 50% below published rates, meant that a small refiner in Oil City or Titusville could not sell kerosene cheaper than Standard could deliver it to their own doorstep. One by one, the independents sold out, merged, or closed. By 1880, the trust controlled refineries from Baltimore to San Francisco, pipelines crisscrossing Pennsylvania, and marketing networks that placed the blue Standard barrel in every corner grocery from Maine to California. The trust form itself was a legal masterpiece. Created in 1882 under the guidance of Samuel C. T. Dodd, it allowed shareholders of more than 40 companies to deposit their stock certificates with 9 trustees, chief among them, who voted the shares as a single block. No state law prohibited such an arrangement. It was simply a new way to centralize control. The public saw it differently. Pamphlets, sermons, cartoons depicted as a crowned king of monopoly, his crown forged from oil drums, his scepter a pipeline. When the Ohio Attorney General sued in 1889 to dissolve the trust's Ohio charter, the trustees quietly reorganized as the Standard Oil Company of New Jersey, moving the headquarters to a state with friendlier incorporation laws. The game continued. The 1890s brought personal trials alongside public ones. Health faltered, severe digestive problems, nervous exhaustion, the complete loss of body hair that left him wearing a series of wigs. Doctors prescribed rest. He retreated to Forest Hill, his Cleveland estate, and later to the vast Hills property he began acquiring in 1893. There, on 3,000 acres overlooking the Hudson, he walked the grounds, played golf on a private 9-hole course, read scripture, and oversaw the slow construction of the stone mansion completed in 1913. He lived simply within its walls, plain meals, no alcohol, early to bed, while the fortune grew beyond counting. Philanthropy had begun long before retirement. In 1889, he gave $600,000 to found the University of Chicago, insisting on high academic standards. By 1900, the gifts exceeded $35 million. He funded seminary, later college in Atlanta, named for his wife's family, to educate black women at a time when such opportunities were scarce. In 1901, he established the Institute for Medical Research on land overlooking the East River in New York. Within decades, It would produce Nobel laureates and conquer diseases once thought incurable. The General Education Board, chartered in 1902, poured more than $129 million into Southern schools for both black and white children, building thousands of one-room schoolhouses and training teachers. The Sanitary Commission eradicated hookworm across 11 Southern states between 1909 and 1915, treating more than 400,000 people and lifting a generations-long burden of lethargy from the region. The 1911 Supreme Court decision dissolving the Standard Oil Trust came as both punishment and windfall. The 34 successor companies issued shares to trust certificate holders in proportion to their holdings, received vast quantities of stock in each. As the pieces prospered independently, competing, innovating, expanding the value. By the time of his death, his wealth was estimated at $1.4 billion in 1937 dollars, equivalent to roughly $30 billion today, though some calculations place it far higher when adjusted for economic scale. John D. passed away on May 23, 1937, in his beach winter home, having outlived most of his contemporaries and given away more than $500 million. Newspapers across America carried front-page obituaries that balanced admiration for his generosity, with reminders of the methods that built the fortune. His funeral in Cleveland drew thousands. The family asked for simple memorials, contributions to the church or favorite charities rather than flowers. The story did not end there. John D. devoted his life to stewardship, preserving historic sites, funding medical research, creating parks, building center during the depths of the Depression as an act of faith in the future. His children extended the reach. Nelson into national politics, David into global banking, into conservation. He helped create dozens of national parks and protected lands. John III into population studies and Asian affairs, into progressive governance in Arkansas. By the late 20th century, the family foundations, Foundation, Brothers Fund, David Fund, and others, had dispersed tens of billions more, supporting civil rights, environmental protection, public health, arts, and international development. In 2026, the current chapter continues quietly but powerfully. The Foundation's January initiatives Food 2050 Inspiring New Visions of Nourishment. The $10 million Food is Medicine Impact Fund strengthening preventive health in American communities. The School Meals Accelerator reaching millions of children worldwide. Carry forward the same principle that guided the founder. Systematic, evidence-based giving that multiplies impact far beyond the original gift. From a 50-cent daily wage in 1855 to produce prescriptions reaching veterans in Ohio clinics today. From kerosene lamps lighting frontier homes to regenerative school meals nourishing children in rural America and across the globe, the arc remains unbroken. A long, patient American story of discipline turned outward, of private ambition becoming public good. Let these many decades of quiet resolve drift through your mind now, gentle and unbroken, washing away the day's small tensions until only stillness remains, soft and welcoming, ready to receive you into sleep. As the Dhaka evening of January 20, 2026, settles into a gentle hush, street sounds softening, the call to prayer drifting faintly on the warm air. The long American history of the family draws toward its most recent chapters, the one still unfolding in living memory, in boardrooms and foundation offices. In quiet family meetings and public announcements that carry forward the same disciplined impulse that began with a boy saving pennies in a Cleveland ledger more than 180 years ago. Let these final, close-up pages of the story flow slowly now, like the last light fading over the Hudson from the windows of, inviting your eyelids to grow heavy, your breathing to deepen, and your mind to drift peacefully into rest. After John D. died in 1937, the stewardship passed to his only son, John D., known within the family as Junior. Born in 1874, he had grown up under the weight of his father's expectations, tutored at home, shielded from extravagance, sent to Brown University where he graduated in 1897 with honors in classics. Unlike his father, Junior was never comfortable in the oil business. He preferred the quieter work of giving away the fortune wisely. He married in 1901, daughter of an island senator. Their union produced 6 children and became a partnership of shared purpose. Junior devoted decades to large-scale projects that shaped the American landscape and its institutions. He spent $60 million in 1930s dollars, meticulously restoring colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, turning a sleepy town into a living museum of the nation's founding era. He built Center in Midtown Manhattan during the Great Depression, a bold $250 million complex of offices, theaters, and gardens that employed thousands when jobs were scarce, and gave New Yorkers a symbol of hope rising from hard times. In 1946, he donated 18 acres along the East River for the United Nations headquarters, a gift that helped secure the world body's permanent home in America. He created or enlarged national parks, Acadia in Maine, Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee and North Carolina, Grand Teton in Wyoming, preserving millions of acres of wilderness for future generations. When he died in 1960 at age 86, he had given away more than $537 million of his own inheritance, continuing the family tradition of systematic philanthropy. The 5 brothers, John III, 1906-1978, Nelson, 1908-1979, 1910-2004, 1912-1973, and David, 1915-2017, carried the legacy into mid- and late 20th century America. John III focused on population issues and Asian relations, founding the Population Council in 1952 to research family planning and later establishing the Asia Society. Nelson became the most public face, 4-term governor of New York, 1959-1973, vice president under Ford, 1974-1977, and a perennial contender for the Republican presidential nomination. Emerged as the family's foremost conservationist, helping establish dozens of national parks, wildlife refuges, and protected lands. He also quietly funded early UFO research in the 1990s. The only brother to settle in the South, served 2 terms as Arkansas governor, 1967-1971, pushing progressive reforms in education and race relations at a time when such positions were politically risky. David, the youngest, became chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank and a central figure in global finance. He helped create the Trilateral Commission in 1973 and remained influential in international affairs until his death at 101. By the 1980s and 1990s, the 7th generation, more than 170 heirs scattered across the country, began to assume responsibility for the family's many foundations and trusts. The foundation continued its global work, fighting malaria and HIV/AIDS, supporting agricultural innovation through the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, funding climate-resilient development. The Brothers Fund shifted toward environmental justice and divestment from fossil fuels, announcing in 2014 that it would sell all holdings in coal, oil, and gas companies, a symbolic break with the original source of the family fortune. Other family vehicles followed suit: the Family Fund, the David Fund, and individual trusts. By the early 2020s, the family had collectively committed to phasing out fossil fuel investments, redirecting billions toward renewable energy, carbon capture, and climate adaptation. In the most recent years 2020 through 2026, the story has grown quieter, yet more focused on immediate human needs. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the foundation helped fund vaccine distribution in low-income countries, supported economic recovery programs in the United States, and partnered with universities to study long-term health impacts. Post-pandemic, the foundation, Food is Medicine initiatives gained momentum, produced prescriptions for patients with diet-related chronic diseases, medically tailored meals for seniors and veterans, integration of nutrition counseling into primary care. The $10 million Food is Medicine Impact Fund, launched on January 15, 2026, aims to embed these solutions in up to 10 state health systems over 3 years, building on earlier federal partnerships. The School Meals Accelerator, announced January 16, 2026, extends the vision globally while strengthening U.S. leadership in regenerative agriculture and child nutrition. The historic estate at Hills remains a family touchstone. Its public tour paused in 2026 for thoughtful upgrades to accessibility and visitor experience, set to reopen in 2027. Capital Management, the family-affiliated wealth manager, continues to publish measured outlooks for 2026, navigating AI growth, interest rate shifts, and energy transitions with the same long-horizon prudence that guided the founder. Today, in January 2026, the name no longer dominates headlines as it once did. Instead, it appears in the fine print of grant agreements, in the names of research centers and scholarships, in the quiet work of improving school lunches in rural America, in efforts to make healthcare more preventive and food more healing. The fortune that began with kerosene and railroads has become a vast, enduring engine of public good, more than $20 billion given away across generations, countless lives touched, institutions strengthened, landscapes preserved. From the oil derricks of Titusville to the community gardens of 2026, from a single ledger book to foundations that span the globe, the history closes its most recent chapter not with fanfare but with steady, patient continuation. The same American story of discipline, ambition, reckoning, and generosity, now carried forward by people who never knew the founder yet still feel the quiet obligation he instilled. Let these closing notes of a very long tale settle softly over you now, every detail blurring gently into warmth, every name and date fading into the peaceful rhythm of breath and heartbeat, welcoming you at last into the deep, restoring quiet of sleep. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories.